with us, Dana Martini. He has 47 years in the clay industry in different roles, and very knowledgeable, and he's put together a PowerPoint for us. He said that when I asked him to do this, he already had some PowerPoints that he uses in other places, but he did some extra research to make this PowerPoint, so it not only benefits us, but he said it benefited him because he did some extra research and is able to give us more information than what we were expecting. So, Dana, it's your program.
Thank you for inviting me here, and I see a couple historians in the clay industry out there, so they can critique what I'm about to tell you. And let's get going. I work at Superior Clay Corporation, as you mentioned. I've been there for 47 years in many roles, from machinist to glaze technician and a bunch of other odd-man jobs that I've done out there. I'd like to, throw a little plug in here for the Clay Capital Heritage Center in Yorksville. That right now they're temporarily closed. They're doing an addition. They had a soft opening a couple weeks ago. It was very. Some of the displays are really unique and interesting. So if you get a chance once we get open, I think September. They're planning on being open. It's something we want to see. This is what the title is, a snapshot of the clay industry in Tuscarawas. I'm not getting it on here, so I'll have to kind of look here. Tuscarawas County, again, I've been with clay 47 years. I want to talk about the reason that the clay industry is located here in the Tuscarawas Valley. And the story of two families and their involvement in the industry. And one is the McClave family. They are fourth generation owners and operators of Superior Clay, and I have to be fourth generation with Superior Clay. I'll go into that a little bit more later. So, and I also want to talk about the direction of the industry and how it's changed and how we've managed to survive. And I was talking to somebody earlier about sewer pipe. We started as a sewer pipe plant, and if you talk about sewer pipe to a younger generation or younger, they really don't have a clue usually what we're talking about. I think most of the people here look like they're old enough to remember when all these plants and factories were running in the area. So this is a cluster of the, just to give you the importance and the size of the industry it was in Tuscarawas County. It was broken into clusters, and this gives a lot of detail, and this comes from the 40s. So this gives a lot of detail when the places open and when they close. I know you can't read it from there, but I'm going to explain. There's one cluster, and it's called Cluster 3, and this is Mineral City and the area up there. And there's 5 factories, 5 sewer pipe clay factories in that area. Strasburg, Dover had 6. And the earliest one was have to be in Dover. It's 1870s. In Belton, in the Mineral City area, was 1872. Really, there wasn't any factories down in the Yorksville, Denison area. We had 22 factories, just to give you the size of the scope. We had 6 here, 5 there, 6 here, and 22 right here. In this area right here is 22. So the importance and the impact of the even really kind of predates me, as I'm going to explain, that the industry started to really slow down in the 50s and 60s, and I'll explain that a little bit. But there was still a lot of factories left into the 80s. We're here because of the clay industry and the clay manufacturing is here because of the clay. And this is their clay quarry. This is out by the high school, the Claymont High School. We've been there my whole career. I've been here 47 years. We've gotten clay from some other sources, other places. We got some from up in Midvale. They were behind the old St. Paul's Church. We took a big chunk out of there. And I was mentioning to somebody, we took Universal Clay that down by the Y Taverns in Ayton, or in Tusky. They were doing, this is after the place has been closed and boarded up for 30, 40 years. They were doing, whoever owns it now is doing some expansion, and they were digging into the side of the hill. And they got into this really good clay, and that's why the plants are there. if you notice, all the plants are located right at the valley floor. And that's because the clay is right at the valley floor. I can show you a picture. This is right at the this is the Tuscarawas River, but the Tuscarawas River is probably, from right here, it's probably 150 yards that way. So the clay is laid down, all the strata in the geology of this part of the country is laid down horizontally. You know, the valley is just washed out. So, you know, the clay's gone in the valley, it's all gravel and that. But the clay goes right to the edge. And that's why when the railroads came through in the 1860s, they made these cuts into the hillside, and they found out, oh, there was really good clay here. And the same thing happens at, like, down where the industry really got its start was down in Wellsville and Toronto area. And that's because down there the clay came out to the surface. If you go along the Tuscarawas River Valley, you'll see right at the river valley, if you dig into the side, sometimes you don't even have to dig into the side or go through the hill cuts. You know, in Tuscarawas County, you're going to see a big chunk of clay. This is the coal, and that's the other reason. This is coal right above the clay. So they had both, you know, they had both the fuel and the raw materials. This happens to be dolomite right above it. It's not very good quality dolomite. Dolomite's a, you know, it's like limestone, but it's made of fresh water, brackish water. So there is some buildings in the valley that's made from the dolomite locally, but it's not really a good building material. But they crush it up and they'll use it for wells. The oil well industry uses, and they use limestone obviously. But this is the clay, and you can see this other seam of clay up here. There's one about 12 feet tall, and there's a little bit more coal, and then there's another one about 15 feet tall. But those aren't the quality that we use in the industry. The quality we're using in the industry is about a 6-foot seam right here. This was all lake bottoms back geologically time. This is 40,000 years old, or million years old, I'm sorry, 340 million years old. We also take the shale from the top of the hills, and the shale that we use are only on the highest hills along the valley. And if you go down to Janate, if you ever noticed, you'll see our shale pit. Now you can't see it as well, but 5-10 years ago you could see it real well. That side is facing Route 36, is kind of growing back now. But we use shale. Historically, they just used clay. But in the 50s, there was a lot of research in sewer pipe and technology, and they found out by adding shale, and that's what makes it orange versus this turns out like buck color, that it made it stronger. It gives it more compressive strength, and it lowers absorption. So that's why we added shale, or we didn't add shale, but back in the 50s when they started, technology was changing, and they discovered that adding shale made it stronger. In the late 70s, James McClave, E.W. McClave, show you E.W. McClave here in a second. Grandfather started with the sewer pipe plant in Wellsville, Ohio. His sons, and there's actually a McClave here, might be able to help me because I don't know the name of it was Sam, and I don't know his brother. I don't think. No, Sam and Elmer this is Elmer.
Sam and Elmer were the two, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that's Skip, but that's Elmer were the second.
Oh, okay. See,
Elmer were the first.
People
Elmer were the first
critiquing
one,
mine.
and Sam were brothers.
Okay. There you go. So it was Elmer. Okay, it was Elmer 1. You knew that too, Eva? Well, Todd, I talked to Todd. If he told me, I don't remember. But anyways, this is Elmer 2 then, EW2, and that's his 85th birthday, and I forget the year, but I was looking at the year, 2014. So, and this is Elmer 3, which is Todd McClave. We called him Skip. And this is Elmer 4. Yeah. And that's Tyler McClave, who's currently the president of Superior Clay Corporation. There we go. I got ahead of myself. And Tyler, which I got 3, but evidently it's 4. He is the current president. I've had the privilege of working alongside 3 of them. I worked for Skip and Todd, and now I'm working for Tyler. So been a good road. In 1936, Sam McClave and his brother Elmer purchased the Buckeye and the Wolf and Landing plants that were either temporarily closed or not running to capacity. And this is the Buckeye Clay plant that they bought, and it was started in 1880. And this is the Wolf and Landing. Both these are gone. And this is the Wolf and Landing, which is right outside of Denison, and it was started in 1918. Later, his son's James Jr., and I don't know if I'm right on that. Was it James Jr.? Is that what Bud's name was? Was it James Jr.? Or just
I
James?
think so. They just call him Bud.
Yeah, we just called him Bud. Everybody had nicknames, but it was, and Elmer too, evidently. They ran these two plants, and then they purchased the Peerless Clay Plant Company in Toronto, Ohio, in the 1940s, sometimes in the 1940s. And this is the Peerless plant, which is not directly relevant to us here in Tuscarawas County, but it was the part of the McClave's legacy. So this is the Superior Clay Corporation, 1970 Superior Clay Corporation. Closed the Buckeye and the Wolf and Landing and combined operations at the closed Evans factory, which was at the time was the largest plant in the area with 42 kilns. Following closely, the DeRoyal plant in Midvale closed, I believe, in 1959. At least that's what I think. That's when the year I was born, and I was told that spring it was closed. My grandpa actually worked at my grandpa Marstrelli. My mom's dad actually worked at DeRoyal, and I got some pictures. My mom actually worked there. This is the Superior Clay 1990s. And the plant up here in the corner, right up there, was built in 1905. This is a photograph, 2006, and you'll notice the plant that was built in 1905. We tore it, or Superior tore it down, I think in the 80s. I mean, we still used it when I started there. I'm going to say it was in the 80s. It was connected on the second floor by a sort of like a catwalk that was closed in. And you ran trucks and pilots and tractors back and forth there. So this is what the plant looks like now. We've got solar panels and all these kilns here that you see. Like I said, there was 42 of them. There's only, there might be half a dozen left. We don't use any of them. This is a picture. This is my family. And this is Fortunato Martini right here sitting. He was born in 1879. He emigrated to the U.S. around 1900s, originally working in the coal mines in Roswell area. Later, he moved his family to the Maple Grove area of Uricksville, where he worked in the coal and clay mines before, I don't know if it was transferring or just got a new job in the factories. And I'll show you. This is out in, this is in Maple Grove area. This is from 1914. It's got names on it, so there's names of everybody that's in it. I know there's another Martini, there's a Andrietta for sure. I know one of them's an Andrietta and one of them's another Martini. This is Edward Marstrelli holding the shovel. He was born in 1893. He also emigrated from Italy, landing in Barnhill, and sometime in the early 1900s. He also worked in the local coal mines before going into the factory. This is a photo of him at the Royal Robinson plant in Midvale, and that was the largest plant in the world at the time that was built. This goes back to, this is my grandfather, Fortunato, and this is at the H.K. Porter plant in Uricksville. I don't know how many is from down in the Twin City area. If you remember, this burnt down on Easter Sunday. I think it was, I know somebody in here knows, Easter Sunday, maybe 1968, it seemed like was the year, but I'm not sure about the year. Nobody's got correction on that, so we're going with 1968. Yeah, but it burnt down on Easter Sunday, I do remember that. When these places burnt, they were spectacular. You know, these are 3-4 story posted beam wooden buildings and a tar paper roof. I remember the tar paper was floating, through the air. One of the Denison plant burnt down a couple years later. It was abandoned, and it burnt down at night. I remember there was embers and ashes coming down in our yard. I live over by the Yurtsville City Park. Then I did. So my observation is these guys shoveled coal in the mines basically all their lives. They shoveled coal in the mines, I'm guessing until they could no longer go underground, and then they moved above ground and shoveled coal for the rest. And it's just ironic. These are both my grandfathers, and they're both doing the same job. I don't have a picture of my grandfather, Edward Marstrelli, in the mines, but I got a picture of him shoveling coal into the kilns used to be coal-fired. They switched to gas in the 50s, from my understanding. They switched to natural gas, and it was a big jump in quality. You could control the gas a lot more than you could to coal. This is during World War II. My mother, Marion Marstrelli Martini, worked at the Royal in Midville also. And it's how fortunate somebody brought a camera to work to capture these great photos. This is Mom, and here she is with the press crew. She passed away in the 80s. There's a big generational difference. My grandfather, not my great-grandfather, but my grandfather was born in 1879. He was 80 years old when I was born. He had been passed away already, but I guess that's the way they did it. They had kids when they were old, and then my parents weren't real old, and even the big generational thing. This is the Royal. I don't have a good picture. I had a lot of pictures, and I know some guy that's got a lot of pictures here. The guy's got more pictures than probably anybody in the county on the clay industry. And these probably are, but these mostly are probably yours, aren't they? This is my son and my daughter. My son is, he's now the glaze technician, but he's also a brancher, and I'll show you what branching is. He's been a molder. He's done about everything. He just tries a lot of different jobs. Right now, he's our glaze technician and brancher. My daughter, she's our payroll clerk. She's also a respiratory therapist at Altman Hospital. She works there once every couple of weeks to keep her license going, but she's our payroll clerk and HR. And this is just a fun little photograph. This is just a couple weeks ago. And my grandson come out, and he insists that he helps. So this is my son. He's a brancher. So what they're doing is they're cutting, this is a piece of wall coping. We still make a lot of wall coping. So he's cutting a piece of coping. There's a jig, and this is just piano wire on a piece of metal. And he's not doing a whole bunch of things. So my son's pushing the wire through the soft clay, and then my son's he's putting the clay on, and you can see he's just really, really observant on everything. He just thinks it's the greatest thing. And what you do is once you slap that together, see he's putting mud on this piece, and then he's going to shove that piece onto that piece right here, and he'll shove that on. And then when you're done, the clay that sticks out, you run your finger better than he's doing. But you run your finger on it, and then you take a little metal knife and you smooth it out so that it sticks together. Then when it's put into the kiln, it's vitrified and becomes one piece. But here he's rubbing it down, and it was just a fun day. But we're going to talk about the impact of other industries that the clay industry had. And railroads were huge, and that's another part of the reason that we're located here in the Tuscarawas Valley is because of shipping. At one time, and I don't know what the statistic is now, but within 500 miles of Tuscarawas County, 80% of the population lived. I don't think that's probably the truth now, but California now has become so big in Florida. But at one time, when these factories were running, 80% of the population was within 500 miles. And these factories started at a time when sanitation was so important. People don't realize. I mean, I can do a whole presentation on you know, the effects of sanitation on what it did on our life, on our quality of our life. And it still goes on. I mean, you know, you think we're done, and we're not done. I mean, in recent years, we've done, when we were still making pipe, I should say recent years, that 80s or 90s, but, and it still goes on. But like Long Island, you know, that population of Long Island, New York is huge. I mean, I think it's 3-4 million people. And they didn't have, everybody was still operating on a septic system. So they came through there, and they're still coming through there and making them all hook into, you know, into sewage systems. We do it even locally. We just recently had, like Newport, Ohio, outside of Europe, so they got a water line run out there. But everybody's still hooked up on septic systems. And if your septic systems, I know there's a lot of old houses, you know, built up. Newport has its own history. Newport was a pottery back in the 1840s, am I right? Brigades, any two guys here, 1840s. I know you sent me a picture of one of the plants, one of the factories, the potteries, and I think the picture's from the 60s or 50s, and it's like dilapidated. But there was 20 or so potteries in Newport. It's called Tracy. Well, their in-laws still live there, and they live in a house that's, I would say, is early 1820s maybe, 40s at the very latest. And you know, they have a septic system, a septic tank, but the water runs into a clay pipe that runs to the creek. Now, water is probably clean because it goes through a septic tank, but those are the kind of things, those all need to, and will they in my lifetime, probably not all be tied into a sewage system. But this is all across the country, you know, this kind of stuff happens. But it still is a very important thing. Regrettably, clay is not playing a big part of it. There's only 2 clay plants left in the United States. One is in Logan, Ohio. The other one is in California, in McClave Company. The other big industry, I don't think I mentioned, I couldn't remember I added this slide or not, because the other day I was talking to Todd McClave, he's vice president, wherever he is now, the previous president, and he enjoys history. And we were talking about the huge machine shop, how many people it employed. We had 2 big machine shops down in the Twin Cities. Neither's there anymore. The one that is still there, and people may know, is Raymond Machine in Brightwood, Ohio. They make dyes. They don't. Someone's shaking their head, so they don't make dyes no more. Oh, okay. I thought maybe you knew somebody that worked there. But they made dyes, and I think they still make dyes for all over the country, if not the world. So we have a machine shop, and again, I was the machinist there for a few years. We did employ 2 full-time machinists. I was one of them, and interesting. The other fellow that was the machinist there when I started was Stan Mihivik. He's dead now, but he was a displaced person. He was from Yugoslavia, so you know, it was so interesting to work with somebody that he was actually on the Nazi side because he had polio, and you know, he didn't escape when the Nazis came. So he had a lot of interesting stories to tell me about that and everything else in Europe. But he moved in over here to the United States, and I think he said 52, 55. They would take people that called displaced people. I think the churches had something to do with it. They would move them over, get them jobs. He was a very, very good machinist, but he taught me a lot of stuff. Then we had some other machinists after that, and our last machinist just retired. This is our machine shop. And like I said, we make dyes, so we make our own dyes. And the equipment that we're running, our steam press, and if anybody's from down in the Twin City area, you still hear our steam press. We generate steam, and it's a steam press, the big steam cylinder that's, you know, it's going and it just does that all day long when we're running. Interesting thing is, you know, when I graduated from high school, there were still 8 factories in the Twin City area. You would sit there in high school with the windows open before air conditioning. The windows would be open, and it would just be all over, you know. Our plant would be running, and the plant out in Roanoke would run, they also had steam presses. The steam press that we run was built in 1914, and we run it. Everything we have to make all the parts for it. You don't buy any parts for a 1914 machinery. Our crusher, when the clay comes in, it comes in big chunks. It goes through a primary crusher. It's a very historic piece of equipment. It's got a big flywheel on it. Must be 8-foot tall flywheel that goes around and runs these crushing maulers. And it's 1923, so it's that's 103 years old. And we constantly, we have to maintain it. We have to have welders come in and build the teeth up on the grinders. Numerous, clay plant, the numerous clay plants survived or supported the thriving downtown, both Uricksville and Denison. And some people don't realize that Stone Creek and Newcomers Town and many others were directly dependent on the clay industry. And this is a picture of Uricksville. I mean, it's still doing good. I live in Uricksville, and nothing like it was, but when you had me and Todd again, we were trying to figure out how many people must have been employed in the industry. And when I got out of high school, there was 8 plants, and we still had about 1,300 people in the industry in Uricksville, Denison, general area. In the industry, and then it wasn't very long after that, they all were closed, and we were the last ones. We had, when I started there, everything was manual. It was the same as it was in the 1880s when I started there. There was 210 people working there. And with changing product and automation, just different things, we went to about 170 real quick, and then we went to 85, and now we're right around 40, 48, 45, 48 workers, not counting the office, but counting just the factory workers. So, just the directly, such as purchasing hardware, and industrial supplies. That's where we got our industrial supplies and hardware. To this day, we still kind of do that, although with Amazon and things like that, our purchasing doesn't deal directly with local hardware stores that much. We still do a significant amount with like Rex Pipe up here in Clayton, but indirectly, such as restaurant, clothing, and groceries, through the workers that work there that bought all this stuff that kept the towns. Another big part of the clay industry was the Clay Week, National Clay Week, with its parade and huge midway. It was something to look forward to everybody. I can remember, when I was telling somebody, like my son was, my grandson was out there at 5 years old. I remember going out there with my father at 6 years old. I just remember how old I was. My uncle, John Martini, Danny's here today. Danny, I worked with Danny too for 30, 40 years, whatever he retired. Time goes fast. I think he's been retired for a few years now. But Johnny, his dad, was my dad's brother. My dad had passed away already. He died pretty young. But John was still there, and it's good camaraderie. You go in there, and your uncle's there, my cousins were there, and it's still that kind of place. But Clay Week, as a clay worker's kid, you got free tickets to Clay Week, the Midway. I was trying to find out, and I know somebody's going to be able to tell me this here today. Clay Week ran from 1951. Does anybody know when it stopped? I'm guessing early 2000. Anybody got any come on, people down my way? Nope, nobody knows. I think it was early 2000s. So that was, it was 50, I think I remember 54 years for sure, so that would have made it 2005. And it's ironic, is at the end, I think the Clay Week actually got bigger. The Midway did for sure. And I think the reason it fails is a lot of things fail is people don't volunteer. It's all about, these things were put on by all volunteers. There'd be a committee, and even the Clay Museum, or the Clay Heritage Museum, it's hard to keep volunteers. And they have you do a great job. Deb's here, she's one of the, on the board, she does a great job with keeping it going and getting things done. Another big aspect, and this is still today, is the Miss Clay pageant. It's an official primary to the Miss Ohio pageant. And somebody might be able to help me here. I know we had one, Miss America was Suzanne Perkins. I'm thinking we had two, but I'm not 100% sure. I know we had one, Suzanne Perkins. You think there was another one?
I don't know.
I know
We were
Suzanne
just at the
Perkins.
Clay Museum yesterday, and it was just Susan Perkins.
Maybe it is. I thought we had another one. Susan Perkins was the first, and she was probably 85 somewhere.
1977?
Are you kidding me?
I think.
76.
76, you're right.
I have no autograph.
Oh, isn't that long?
Well, there you go.
Okay, somebody give me 77. We got 76, 77.
I thought Mary Ann Mobley.
I thought it was later, but anyway.
Dana, was it Mary Ann Mobley?
I don't know, that's what I'm saying. I thought there was two.
I think she
but-
was in the 50s.
Oh, no, I didn't think so. I thought Susan was the first one.
No, but Mary Ann Mobley was.
Oh, in the 50s? Was she from Clay? the Clay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We have some sort of older folks that are.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you a lot. Thank you.
There are, these two are some of my best friends. It's almost
At the cocktail
but
lunch.
there's a little bit of an age difference. They're still our best friends. We meet up with them down Florida, and we meet up with them up here. Let me see, the manufacturing, let me see what the time is. Okay. I have a tendency, I do architects, AIA presentation, and they're pretty strict about keeping it an hour, and in about an hour and 15 minutes, I say, listen, if you can get up and walk away, it doesn't, don't feel embarrassed, it doesn't bother me at all. Most time nobody does, and then usually about an hour and a half, the principal of the architect firm says, these guys gotta go back to work. I said, and then honestly, my wife goes with me all the time, and we do it all over the country. I don't do too much West Coast, but everywhere from Texas to anywhere. Anybody will listen to me. I train masons too, but I'll get stuck there even after the thing's over because they're dragging their drawings out. Because what I do is design fireplaces. That's my job. Is I work on AutoCAD and I design crazy fireplaces, big ones, and we get these houses with 12, 14 fireplaces. It gets very complicated. Anyways, that's my job now. We still do a little bit with the clay, the raw materials, but luckily we just hired another, one of his son-in-laws of Todd, and he's very, very smart. So I'm thinking he's probably going to take care of the raw materials now. But anyways, where was I at? It started to decline in the continued. It really did start in the 50s. It started to decline a little bit, and it declined right through the 60s and 70s. And anybody from here, seeing it happen. A lot of plants closed. It was 22, and like I said, when I in the 1980s, I started here in 1979. There was approximately 8. I counted 8, but I think I might be missing some. With approximately 1,500 people still employed. To go back to me and Todd McClave was trying to figure out, and we figured at least each plant had 120 people working at them, so 22 times that, and that's not the coal mine or the clay mines. The clay mines were separate. They always had their own separate, so they would have had I have no idea how many took to run the clay mine. We still, and people are invited if you're ever down there, to give me a little bit of head time, a little bit heads up, thank you. You're welcome to come down and go through a tour of the place. But we still have the mule barn. It's a round barn, and Todd had the thought of sort of preserving it. We put a new roof on it. It's got a metal roof on it probably 20 years ago. We had the CAC room, beautiful little building with clear story lights. It finally the roof literally collapsed on it, again, 15 years ago or so. But, you know, through the 80s, and by the 80s, it was, you know, really in sort of sad shape. By 1990, Superior Clay Corporation operated. We were operating once was the Evans Sewer Pipe Plant factory, was a sole survivor. And at that time, we had about 180 people in the 90s. In 1984, Superior Clay Corporation reached a decision to scale back the sewer pipe manufacturing and concentrate on manufacturing of other vitrified clay products. To give you an idea of how it dropped off, when I started in 1979, we would ship about 25 to 30 semi-truckloads a day out of our factory. And by 1987, we would be down, and Danny was our shipping guy here, Danny Martini, my cousin. He would know the numbers better, but I would say we were down to 12 trucks a day in that 4 or 5 year period time. And then at that time, the McClave family decided to get out. And, you know, and we still do make some sewer pipe. We make branches and, you know, special stuff that we more high dollar stuff, and we leave the standard stuff to Loeb and Clay to make. So we still do make pipe, and we make pipe on a regular basis. We probably make it once every couple of weeks. At the time, this was our process of firing the kilns. These are kilns. They go up to 2,000 degrees. They're 3 foot thick. You build a door on it every single time. So you're heating. And this used to be coal eyes that they threw coal in. These are gas burners. There's 12 burners on there. You see this little thing right here? That little concrete thing, or brick thing? You slide that back and forth to adjust how much oxygen. It's a science and an art. So the kiln fireman would have to adjust how much oxygen by how much gas is going in there. You know, you have to burn the gas efficiently. If you don't burn it efficiently, then the pipe doesn't burn right. You know, it'll smoke. You can ruin a whole kiln. And stuff in there, you heat it up, you cool it down. When it's hot, you can't even stand in front of this door. I mean, I've got a jacket to prove that. Because in the winter, we didn't work outside with maintenance at the time. In fact, this was our heat system. We took the heat off of it. It's all poured down. This was even poured down then. But these things here, we make all this with the maintenance. So we were making this has been back in the mid-80s. We were trying to collect the heat off of the kilns to dry our pipe. It didn't work so well because there's so much sulfur in the clay that we pretty much abandoned it almost right away. If you stood up against this in the winter, you know, it'd be cold out, you know, and you'd stand up against there. If you weren't careful, it would melt your nylon jacket. So even out here, you couldn't put your hand on out in here. This is, like I did, 3 foot thick. So this is what was used as a kiln. We had 42 of them, and we used all of them. They were all used. Starting in 1982, with the completion of the first modern, efficient, new shuttle kiln, which is a periodic kiln. These are called periodic kilns. You heat it up, cools it down. Like bricks made in tunnel kilns, where they shove the brick in. It starts out soft, not soft, but green. It's called green. It's dry brick. So you got brick all over the place. And it's shoved in, and by the time it gets to the middle, it's probably 2,000 degrees. It's vitrified, which makes it's what what nature does to it makes marble. You know, under pressure and heat, it takes clay, makes marble, and stretching science and geology a little bit. But that's basically what it is. You know, travertine and all those are clays that were morphed into something. So we're vitrifying the clay. We're making it almost. I compare it to stone, and that's what we're doing. What nature does with heat and pressure, we're doing with just heat. But a tunnel kiln, it pushes it through, and when it comes out the other end, it's already cool enough to handle. This is different. This is a shuttle kiln, or this is a periodic kiln, and our new kilns are periodic kilns. So they would take the door out, and it would be literally still. You take the door, you can see a seam right here. They'll bust that out to let some of the heat out. But when they go in, when the guys went into the kilns, and we had, I think we had four crews, 4 second crews, 4 drawn crews. There's about 6 guys in each crew, and somebody will probably correct me on all this, but that's about what it was. So in the mornings it was fun because you would go down there, and I was a younger person, and you would go down there, and if they needed an extra man, this was really good pay. It was peaceful, you got paid by the time. So if you could get into the kiln and be part of the crew, if somebody was all sick and that, it was like a bonanza of money. And, you know, back then, you know, not in the 80s, it'd be $120 a day, you know, which was great for a 20-year-old kid, you know, or 20 years. But anyways, we put the first kiln in 1982, and we just tore that one out, the first shuttle kiln that we put in 1982. We put two more in, one in 2002 and one in 2006. That replaced all the 40-foot diameter beehive kilns were phased out. So we were still using them up into the 2006, a little bit later than that. If anybody remembers what happened in 2006, that was our recession or depression or whatever it was. We built that kiln, a company out of Australia engineered it. Our maintenance guys built most of it, all of it. And that company went out of business, not because of us, but just because of the economy. That thing sat for a year or two. We just didn't have the materials, or couldn't sell the material to justify using it. Now this is not the newest kiln. This is that's probably the one that's built in 2002. I believe that one is. So we've got three of these. We got a bigger one. This is the medium-sized kiln. And we put robotics in. So the robotics is on the largest kiln. It's slower. It's slower than man can do. But you don't get the injuries. This is, it's very, very labor intensive. When they were putting it in the shuttle kiln, or the old beehive kiln, this was all manual. I mean, guys literally put these in. This is not our biggest flue. But this flue is probably, it's like 16 by 16, probably weighs 140 pounds, and that's burnt weight. So when it's green, it weighs more than that. So if you handle 150, those would have been, I believe that would probably have been 2 men. Although back the generation before me, they had guys who I did it by one guy, but by the time I got there, it was a 2-man job. But again, this is a lot slower, but we don't get the injuries. We took one less man. There's still 3 guys that have to work. We got 2 guys in a booth that watch with a high definition. This thing's supposed to be able to pick out cracks in it, stuff like that. It does a decent job, but we needed a man there, and we've got these really, really high def cameras that they sit in front of. I don't know what they were 60-inch screen TVs, and when they see a crack in one, they'll either stop the machine and check it, or if they're sure it's cracked, then they'll just tell the machine to throw it away, and it takes it over and throws it away. So that's the robotics. We got 2 of them. Recently, I say recently, but I think it's been about 10, 12 years. Although Superior Clay still manufactures sewer pipe on a limited basis, which is shipped to other products such as clay flue lining, which is used in the construction of site-built masonry fireplaces and chimneys. And we became the leading designers and engineers of site-built masonry fireplaces. Much of the manufacturing process of flues is mechanical, using far less manpower, as you can see. But still, 60% of the products that we manufacture by value is pretty much done the same way it was in the 1880s by skilled craftsmen. As you've seen that picture of my son branching that piece of wall coating was just from, I think it might have been last week. I think it was last week. Superior Clay Corporation has become a leader in the design and manufacture of components for masonry fireplaces, for the masonry fireplace industry. We ship all over United States and Canada. I mean, I've done fireplaces in Florence, Italy. We've done fireplaces in China, France, Bahrain. So we've done fireplaces all over the world. fireplaces, and these are all big fireplaces. They're all probably 72-inch fireplaces. And that's actually, that's in a lodge up in Michigan, I just remember, in 2019. We offer design service. That's huge. We don't charge for design, so architects use it, mason contractors use it, general contractors use our design service. And this is me. I do training, teaching people how to build fireplaces. This is actually teaching a group of at the Masonry, National Masonry Instructors Conference. It's down south, you can tell, but I think that one was held in either Myrtle Beach, sometimes we did it in Birmingham. But most of the people that organized that National Masonry contractors or instructors were from down south. So I always call it the Southeast. I didn't call it national. There was 3 people from up north. This is no lie. There was me, a guy from that taught in Kentucky, and a guy that taught in Maryland. So we were all 3 Yankees. And Kentucky and Maryland is borderline. I had an interesting story. We were down, me and Dara, my wife, we were down at this huge project down outside of Tallahassee. 7 fireplaces on it. And the mason contractor was from down in Tallahassee area. And I go, what's going on here? It's a plantation. It's a 6,000-acre plantation. And the plantation house is still there, but this was, he goes, well, these Yankees come down here and they buy these, and then they build these honey places. And I just, Yankees. And he was dead serious. He said they were from Kentucky. So when I go down there to teach, I'm definitely the outsider. These are just some really interesting fireplaces, and I'll get to some of the other products we do, but this is kind of my passion, is fireplaces. This is a 12-foot fireplace down at the University of West Virginia University in Morgantown. This is at their Alumni Center, so they use this fireplace like on Saturday when they're, or must be Friday night, maybe the night before the games, or maybe after they build a big bonfire. That's 12 foot wide. It's like 6 or 8 foot tall. This is one of the biggest fireplaces I've ever worked on. This is in Vancouver, British Columbia, Whistler Resort. These are 3 6-foot fireplaces, so it's 18-foot fireplace. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. I could go on and on. This is an 8-foot fireplace. Yeah, I think it was 84 inches or 96. This is up at, this is something you can see. That's why I put it on. It's 96 inch. It's at Sarah's Vineyard in Cuyahoga Falls. It's right across the street from the entrance to Blossom. If you go to Blossom, when you come out, there's a road, and it's right in front. That's Sarah's Vineyard. You'll see the sign for it. This is actually the mason that built it, and this is a real fire. It's not, it's not a fake fire. But it's funny because I was talking to the owner, and he said, because we put a table over here, and we put people there, just see how long they can sit there. I'm trying to think of his name. Joe. I know it's Joe. I'm Joe Masons. But Italian, Joe. You know what? Somewhere it is. Well, chimney pots are a huge part of our business, probably 30% of the business. But again, everything's, is I don't want to say it's shrunk, but it has. We used to do about 12,000 of these a year. Now we do about 2,000 of them a year. What we do are a lot more big custom stuff. I mean, this pot here we did, and this is the full pot. It actually had 2 of these sections, and these are 3-foot sections. It's kind of skewed because of the angle. Those were 12 foot tall. They were for a church in Fairhaven, Massachusetts. I went over there when we were doing them. This is actually one that we did for Fairmont Park, and these are all products that we sell now, but we originally did that one for Fairmont Park in Philadelphia. This is how they're made. They're still handmade, hand-packed molds. So this guy's packing the plaster mold. I presentation on process, but we're not going to do that here. But that's him packing the mold. This is a big custom chimney pot that we made that these guys, after you can see the plaster mold, after they pull the plaster mold off, they'll go in and fill areas in and smooth it out. That's actually that Fairmont pot that we made it custom for a project. Can't remember where it was at. This is fairly recent. You know, the buck clay, and this is glazed brown. Just a cool thing. And these are, as you can see, so I kind of put it on there for scale, how big the pots are. There's 2 or 3 other manufacturers that manufacture clay chimney pots, but nobody does anything custom, nobody does anything big. So we actually manufacture chimney pots for competitors because they don't make chimney pots. Even wall coping, there's 2 manufacturers left in the country. There's us and Logan Clay down in Logan, Ohio. Logan Clay, in recent years, in the last 3 or 4 years, have been buying all the coping from us. This product, Danny could probably vouch when we went years without making it. I think it was a year or 2 without manufacturing. We manufacture this every week now. It's really a product that really made a comeback. This is what it looks like when it's installed. This is glazed. A lot of it's just orange colored, but we sell semi-trucks after semi-trucks to cities like New York City and older cities that still use that kind of stuff. Some of it's restoration, but some of it's new construction. A big part of it, people just forgot about it, is actually very economical. It's really economical compared to even like, it's not economical to aluminum, but it's economical to stainless steel or limestone or concrete or cast stone. This is a steam press that I was mentioning, and this is a fairly recent photograph. I should have picked a little clearer one. It is dark in our shop, so it's kind of hard to get a clear picture because everybody's moving. But they're making cooking. I don't know if you can kind of see it coming out with the die is up there, so it's like a big Play-Doh maker. So you put a die up there and you shove the clay down through. The nice thing and the good thing about it is that we can keep, because it's coming vertically, we can keep the clay a little softer so you can do things with it, just as you see my son was cutting it with a piano wire. When we make stuff downstairs on the brick machine, the extruders, which that technology is still 1890s to 1920s. Our machines are newer. They're probably from the 50s, 40s and 50s. But we have 3 extruders of brick machines. But we put bricks of this size, we're putting these big 24 by 24 metal dies on it. So it's a tricky product to make. It's tricky enough to make a little brick. People in the industry realize it. They really do. But people outside the industry don't really understand the gravity of what we're doing. It's hard enough to make a brick. And the other thing with brick is, I see it here. You can say, we meant to do this, or this is okay. This is what we meant to do here. If that comes out on our product, it's no good. So you not only is it a big piece of clay that we're making, you got to dry it right. And that technology has really changed. Our dryers used to be really antiques. I mean, the one was put in the 70s. I think our last dryer we bought down in Florida, in Orlando, our maintenance crew actually went down and tore it apart, brought it up, we put it back together. So that technology, we bought it in the 80s, probably was 70s. And what you do is you put something in there, it's like a big oven, and you dry it, you blow the hot air in there, you have 240 degrees to get the latent moisture out of it. But it's like concrete. You don't want, if it dries on the outside, it won't dry on the inside. Then you put it in a kiln to 2,000 degrees and that moisture comes out and cracks. So what we actually did is we had some engineers come in there in the 2000s and they said, hey, you add moisture to it. So we actually add some moisture to it when it's at low temperature so that it doesn't dry. We want it to dry from the inside out. So it's those kind of technologies. And at the time, I was working as a draftsman in quality control there. I would go into the dryers and we would get about 12-13% scrap. You're throwing 12 to 13% of your material away in the dryer. You put it in the kiln, the old kiln that I showed you, You threw another 13, that was a decent kiln, 13. So now you threw a quarter of your material away right from the start. You know, that's not cost effective. And that's what threw a lot of these companies out of business. Superior, you know, invested in the technology. Now, if we get 5% scrap out of the dryer, we're trying to figure out what's going on. In the kiln, other than when the electric goes out, when the electric goes out and you're firing something at 2,000 degrees, and if it goes out at the wrong time, it's disastrous. We have a generator that comes on right away, but it still always spells disaster. The whole kiln, the part of the kiln is going to be scrap. But other than that, if we get 5% scrap out of the kilns, we're probably down to 3% scrap. So, you know, you go from throwing away 25% of your material to go throwing away 5 or 10, I don't know, 10% of your material, you know, your profit is better, you know. So, wall coping is still, this is a recent picture, this is still manufactured like it was in the 1880s. I'm gonna get through this. It's not going to be too much longer. It's time's up. This is an architect. And so if anybody feels they want to get up and leave, I won't be. So this is our architectural terracotta. When we started this in the 80s, I managed this. Matter of fact, I took all these pictures. Then in around 2000, somewhere 5 or 6, with the economy slowing down, this industry kind of went away too. We still do, and we've still got 4 or 5 projects on the books. But this was back in the heyday. This is 2000, 2001. This is all our stuff. This is the state capitol building in Albany. And I put this on here because it's really hard to show scale. Because I would show this to people and they're, so what? This is how big this piece is. You know, this piece is this right here. I've got pictures of these. There's 2 of these on the building. There's 4 of these on each one. And I got them laying up at Albany, New York, and they're inspecting them. It's very spectacular to see all these big pieces. And this is a huge piece of clay to dry and fire to get to New York, Buffalo, New York. And at the time, I have the pencil drawings. I did this in pencil. This was before AutoCAD, so this was like 84 maybe. But we did it, this is all new, all this here. That up there's 1800. But this is all new. And we did this, me and Paul Ditcher, our pattern maker. We went up there and we rubber molded this section and rubber molded this section. And the rest we just dimensioned the heck out of it. And then come down, I did pencil drawings of it, and then whatever dimensions I'm missing, we went back up and we got some more dimensions. This is a beautiful, this is good stuff here. This is all our stuff. Now this isn't, but even the glaze, see this would be buck clay underneath of it. And we put a glaze on it to look like sandstone. That was a nice project. This was a really nice project.
How do you get that up in the air like that?
What?
Great.
This had a scaffold. I was up there. I got pictures. I scaffold. You had scaffolding up? It was one of the scariest things I ever did. I've done a lot of scary things. They had a ladder. I don't know if you could do this now. Yeah, they had an outside ladder, and it must have went up 70 feet. They're already up on top of the building, and it went like 70 feet on the outside of the scaffold. I was scared. I had to carry like a briefcase or a case with, you know, so I could measure stuff.
Put together in pieces?
It's pieces, yeah. This is one piece, see it? And then there's actually more than, I said 4, but there must be 1, 4, 8 of them on each one. There's 2 of these. And then there was some smaller finials that we made. But this is, you know, there's piece there. This is made in 2 pieces or 4 pieces, and then you can kind of see joints up there. None of those are individual pieces other than that ball on the top, and then that piece from there up is 1 piece.
How was it all to do?
This particular project, how you would love to see, this was engineered crazy. There wasn't mortar. Here, see this? This is stainless steel. It was all clipped. See this in here? So it was all clipped on there with stainless steel and it was caught. One of the few jobs that most of it's set in historically, like it would just be set in mortar, just like a piece of stone. This was really complicated. And then you can't tell, and this doesn't look that complicated. But that's 1 piece, and that's big. This piece here's 2 foot long, so that gives you an idea. It's probably 18 inches. And then underneath there's these aprons, and then all this. What we did is we actually built a mock-up. Like I said, if I had to process, I would show you. I still got pictures. We built a big wooden thing out of our plant, and we put these on before we shipped them and marked each piece, because it's a big jigsaw puzzle. And keep in mind, there's a lot of variation in the clay from the guy that makes it, to the drying, to the firing. So, you know, we would have to trim it, because this was very unforgiving. The attachment on this project was very unforgiving. Most of the time when you're setting it in mortar, like this one, was just historically set in mortar, it's pretty forgiving.
So how many people did you need to build that?
Well, we don't build it. No, we just manufacture the pieces.
Oh, you don't put it together?
No, I just go up there, I would go up there
Okay.
when I wanted somebody to yell at.
That's
That was my job. Give me all sorts and all kind of things. It did. It wasn't a fun time in my life. It was fun because I got to see all this stuff. I went up to Vancouver, British Columbia, and they were telling me the stuff that we made. We did this beautiful building, a skyscraper, 23-story building with terracotta all over it. And they'd come back like 8 years later and said, some engineer said the stuff was cracking, it was glaze cracks. And I had enough documentation. Everybody that was involved with it the first time wasn't there anymore. I said, listen, I got all the documentation. Those were in the glaze when we sold you this 10 years ago. It's not gonna go anywhere. I literally had to go out on this ledge. It's wider than what you think, but it was this wide, it's still scary. I crawled out there and showed them. They were telling me it was leaching. I goes, there's nothing leaching. Nothing can leach out of this. It's bigger part. It was, they had to use copper ties, and the copper ties was leaching out through the joint, and it was like black stains down the way. But anyways, this is making of stuff. And this just happens to be my son when he was a molder. So he did a nice job at molding too. So with, like this piece here goes to the University of Pittsburgh. He had to, you know, these are his thumbprints, so you would make your thumb to give it the texture. That's filling the mold. That's the same piece. I know that piece there. This is a different piece. Those were all in the University of Pittsburgh. Clay bake ovens, somebody mentioned that earlier. We do clay bake ovens. This is our 24-inch one. We make 24, 36, 48. We're not quite big enough for commercial. A lot of people want to do commercial size. There's a company, you know, they claim to be out of Foreign Broad is the name they're coming out of Italy, but they're not from Italy. They're from California. So they're made out of a concrete product. So I can get that all the time. People, can you make one like that? And I said, no, we can't make one like that because this is clay. You can only make clay so big, it'll start to crack. We can do 48-inch, which takes a 32 or 37-inch dome. That's the product that's hard to make, is that piece there. That's only that thick. It's hard to make that piece and keep it from not going out of shape and cracking. So the 40.
Do you make the tiles for the roofs?
We do custom, yeah, we do, yeah. Yeah, Ludowici down in New Lexington, Ohio, is the premier manufacturer in the United States of tile. And they keep getting sold by companies, I think a company from France owns them now. So sometimes they'll make their custom work, and then sometimes we make their custom work. But we don't do it per se, it's mainly custom stuff. We've done stuff, Alice-Odden, if you ever go to Alice-Odden, that Los Divino tile, we replaced 28 pieces. There's 28 pieces that was replaced. That's all that was replaced. There's 10,000 pieces. There's 28 of them when they restored it back in the 80s. We make a tandoori. This was sort of Tyler, our president now, sort of his baby. He kind of takes care of it and has done a heck of a job promoting it. We're the only manufacturer in North America that manufactures a tandoori. I don't know if you're not familiar with what a tandoori is. It's this clay thing inside here that if you go to an Indian restaurant, you get a tandoori cooked piece. But it's got religious significance. If you're from the Middle East or Mediterranean, if you can cook stuff on tandoori, it has some kind of religious significance. So we make a home door. This looks like a home door. I don't think that's a commercial one. We make a small home door, which is for people in their homes, and we also do commercial. There's a company that got a way better reputation, and quite frankly, they do a fantastic job. They're out of England, and they sell tandoors, but they're literally like 6 times more expensive than ours. But they're, you know, they got a real good reputation, a real good quality. Before we started making them, they would ship container-fulls of them from India, and the clay was real soft, and they didn't ship very well, so they would get a container full of them, and literally 70% of them would be scrapped, So a guy down in Ismaila, Florida, Ron Levy, made these one at a time on a potter's wheel. He's passed away now, and he came to us to start making them. He was making them one at a time, and I think the first order that we did was for, I want to say it was 200 of them. And we would ship them to New Jersey, where they would put the stainless steel on them. And now we have Bates Metal down in Geneva, or Port Washington. They roll the metal for us. They ship it. We build it. We put them together. This was done by our guys out at the plant. So this is a custom one. It's got an odd angle, but our guys did this down our factory. You can see the chimney pot behind it. I believe Paul Ditcher, and I'm going to guess Tyler, probably helped put that one together. And this is the last slide. I didn't do too awful bad. Superior Clay recently moved into the refractory cement products with the acquisition of CMS. And funny thing about it is this is out of Buffalo, New York, CMS is, but it stands for Columbia Masonry Supplies. And that comes from the Columbia out in Korea. There was a Columbia Environmental Company out there. And the guy that owned this, Bob Rucker, he was in Orchard Park, Buffalo. He was a big salesman for them. And when they went out of business, he was searching for a business, and this is in the 70s, I believe. He come up with blending. What they do is we take our clay, we don't blend it here. We sell semi-loads of clay. We actually sell clay to one of our competitors. There's only three flue manufacturers in the United States left. There's us, again, Logan Clay down in Logan, Ohio, and Sandcool, which is over in Spencer, Ohio, which is over on the Indiana border. And their clay over there ran out, so if they buy their clay and their shell from us, so we had to put in a big grinding operation with a belt that went across the roof. I didn't really show you the plant too much. It's a 4-story posted beam constructed building, beautiful building. That's it. Appreciate it. I don't know if you have any questions or